Hi, it's Darnell at Way Over Recipes, and today I'm going to be making up some black walnut butter using the Hamilton Beach Shore Crisp air fryer oven and a food chopper to basically make up that black walnut butter. And you basically could try this with other types of maybe nuts and things, see if there's some other thing that you would like to try and make into a butter type of a spread. And so we're going to go ahead and get cooking right now. Okay, so I've got here in the bake pan 2 cups of black walnuts, and so I'm just basically going to go ahead and put those into the cooker here. I don't think they pre-roast black walnuts when they send them to you, so usually black walnuts are just eaten as is, but as far as I know they're not pre-roasted. But the reason why I heat them up is just they have a little bit more of a robust flavor in the nut butter form. I usually, like if I'm eating them just regular, I won't heat them up before I eat them. I'll just eat them raw. They taste great. And if you haven't had black walnuts before, you got to try them. But when it comes to black walnut butter, heating the black walnuts up first gives a little bit more robust flavor in that black walnut butter than not heating them up. Tastes great either way, but I like to heat it up when I'm making the butter, not when I'm just eating them raw and regular. But I'm going to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, going over to bake. This Hamilton Beach Shore Crisp air fryer oven doesn't have a roast setting, so 350 bake, and I'm only going to do about maybe about 7 minutes, maybe about 7 there, and that does these fine. So gonna let those go ahead and just heat up for about 7 minutes, and I'll bring you on back and we'll do next steps later. Alright, so they are finished heating up there, and what I do now, I just basically, I'm going to set them to the side, let them cool down. I'll bring you back in maybe 15-20 minutes after they've cooled down, and we'll move on to the next steps. So I've let the black walnuts cool down a little bit. Going to be enjoying my black walnut butter on some of my homemade almond flour whole wheat bread. If you haven't seen the video for how to make that, that's also here on the channel with over 700 other videos if you have not seen them. Some people come here thinking that there's not much on this channel and don't know about all that's here, so I want to mention that. So I set the cooker to toast and to 450, which is the setting for temperature for toast, and I'm going to put it kind of like there, kind of between the extra dark and the light. And while that's basically toasting, and I probably should have put it up on the higher rack maybe, but it'll toast fine like that. I'm going to go ahead and take my black walnuts and put them into this container that makes it easier to get into this Oster food chopper here. So just going to get these into the, well, it's a big ramekin, but smaller than the pan, because if I try and just pour them right into the chopper from the pan, I make a mess. So I've got them all in my big ramekin, and I'm going to go ahead and get them into my food chopper. I like to make sure I cover this little hole in the middle of the thing that spins around in the food chopper there. So just get them all in and still make a little bit of mess. Well, only spilled over about 3 or 4, which is pretty good. Now that I've got those in there, cover on there, I'm basically going to run the chopper. It's got like 2 settings, a slow setting and a high setting. And I kind of use the high setting mostly, but sometimes I switch to the low. But I'm going to keep chopping these till things start getting to a pretty much like a buttery type of consistency. Now I've been chopping things up a bit, but as I chop things up, there's some that might kind of get on the upper side, upper rim side here, and seems my toast is done. So let me real quick get that out. I'll just basically move that to the side, but it probably would have toasted better overall if I put the rack up higher. But I've done toast the way you're supposed to do it in the initial review of this cooker. If you haven't seen the initial review, be sure to check that out. It's not a big deal for me that I don't have perfectly toasted toast. I know some folks get all worked up, but I could care less. I'm going to go ahead and finish chopping this stuff up. Alright, I think I've got things to a buttery consistency. How long does it take? It depends. That's the answer. It depends. So there we have our buttery consistency. I mean, you're not going to be standing here like 30, 40 minutes or anything like that. You're not going to be standing here 20 minutes, not even. Probably not even 10 minutes, but you know, it depends. You know, some nuts are harder to get down to this consistency than others. It just depends. So now that I've got these chopped up to basically a buttery consistency, the reason why I'm going to add some oil, I'll say that this, after things set for a while, they get harder. It's like they absorb the oil back in and things get harder. So I add some extra oil so that things stay creamy in the jar afterwards. So first ingredient I'm going to add is a teaspoon of sea salt. And I will mention that you should add the ingredients in order, because if you go out of order, the consistency is going to be a little different and it may not work out as well as you would like. Next ingredient is 1 tablespoon of a granulated sweetener. And this is a erythritol monk fruit blend. It's not brown sugar, they just made it a golden color, but it's basically just like any granulated sweetener. They usually make it white. I don't know why they made it golden color for the particular bag that I picked up, but it's the same stuff. So that's your third ingredient, because you got your black walnuts, your salt, and your granulated sweetener. And then we got some more to add. Next I'm going to be adding in 1.5 tablespoons of raw honey. So get this from a local bee farmer. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the 1.5 tablespoons in. Now for the last ingredient, I'm going to be using 3 tablespoons of extra light olive oil. I found if I use 2 tablespoons, it's a little more firm than I want it to be. And if I use 4 tablespoons, it's a little too runny or more runny than I want it to be. And I'm just getting some of this excess that got on the edges here pressed down a little bit. And you always want to add the oil last, because it seems like if you add it earlier, I don't know, maybe the other ingredients soak it up or something, but it doesn't seem to smooth things out as well if you don't add the oil last. So with the oil in there, I'm going to go ahead and chop things up some more to get it to the smoothness of my choice. You basically just have to chop and check until it's at the smoothness that you prefer. And I do want to offer a tip. If while you're basically chopping things up, you see there's like air kind of being created here, then that means that things are like really firm, and it's firm enough that it's not really liquefied or like in a buttery consistency, and things kind of catch air and stuff in here because it's basically hardened, or a little harder than you may want. That means you may want to add a little more oil, but from what I'm seeing so far, that's not the case. Sorry for the noise, but I'm just going to show you. Now if things were basically too hard, you'd see like air kind of, because it'd be kind of like caking up in there, but I'm just going to continue for a little bit longer. Alright, so got things to the consistency I think I want, and so I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, get myself a knife here, and let me show you. Consistency looks pretty good there, looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and take some out, and I think I got it right this time. The thing is, tomorrow, I guess after it's sat in the jar for a little bit, sometimes it might get a little harder, it might not, but Lord willing it'll still be nice and smooth. Like I said, it just depends getting the right amount of oil in there to your preference. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick taste test with you. So thank God for some black walnut butter on some toast. So let's go ahead and taste. course, when you're eating like a nut butter, you should have some water handy. But it tastes great, always does. Do this all the time. So you can make like your nut butters of different types. I do like black walnut butter. You can do others. But this gives you an idea of basically how it's done. And so I hope that you did like that. There'll be a printable version in the video description. And so also in the video description, since nothing here is sponsored, even though there are like on like some platforms there's like ads, but others there's not. So basically ways to help the channel are in the video description, such as the Amazon shop. There's also like merch, there's donations, memberships, stuff like that. So, you know, all good. And so with all of that said, if you did like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, share the video with a friend, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification icon, and good eating.